Part 1. The final battle before the breakthrough. There's a strange thing that happens on the edge of profound awakening. Just when you feel close to clarity, just when the veil begins to thin and your heart opens wider than it ever has before something dark shows up. Not always with horns and fire, but sometimes as anxiety, nightmares, strange thoughts, sudden heaviness, or unexplained spiritual interference that makes you question everything. It's as if the universe suddenly turns against you. You try to meditate, but your mind rebels. You try to pray, and it feels like no one is listening. You begin to wonder if you're going crazy, or worse, if this whole spiritual journey was a mistake. But what if I told you this is exactly what's supposed to happen? What if the appearance of darkness isn't the failure of your awakening, but the evidence of it? You're not being punished. You're being tested, not by a cruel universe, but by the very frequency you're preparing to embody. Because spiritual awakening isn't just a gentle remembering. It's a radical rewiring. It's a complete collapse of everything false within you. And the closer you get to that collapse, the more the old systems, both internal and external, start to panic. The ego panics. The body sometimes panics. And yes, certain energetic entities, those we might call demons, panic too. Because they sense the shift. They feel the vibration of your soul rising. And they know they're about to lose their grip on you. You see, demons don't show up because you're weak. They show up because you're waking. They don't attack you because you're failing. They attack because you're fading from their frequency. That's the part that most people don't understand. Darkness doesn't chase the asleep. It doesn't need to. It already has them. It's the awakened, or more precisely, the awakening, that becomes a threat. Because the moment you begin to reclaim your true nature, you start pulling energy out of the matrix of fear, lack, and separation. And that shift sends a shockwave through the spiritual realms.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Have you ever noticed that the darkest nights of your life came right before your most powerful realizations? That the moment you finally felt like giving up was the same moment something cracked open in your heart and a flood of light came rushing in? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual physics. The old must rise up before it dies. The false must scream before it dissolves. The shadow must surface before it can be integrated. And the demon must show its face before you can realize it was never bigger than you. But the reason it works, the reason it's so effective, is because it feels real. The fear feels real. The despair. The shame. The self-doubt. The sudden chaos in your life. It doesn't feel like a test. It feels like truth. And that's where most people stop. That's where they turn back. They think they've made a mistake, or worse, they think they've attracted something evil because they're broken. But here's the truth. The only thing you've attracted is resistance to your awakening. And that resistance is showing up in the form of fear, confusion, and yes, sometimes even demonic energy. So, what do you do when it shows up? How do you respond when the thing you feared most is suddenly breathing down your neck, whispering lies into your mind, or pressing into your energy field like smoke you can't escape? You don't fight it, you witness it. You don't run, you face it. You don't identify with it. You observe it. Because the moment you stop feeding it your fear, it begins to lose form. Demons survive through agreement, through resonance, through attention soaked in panic. But when you become still, when you stay in your center, when you breathe into your truth, you become untouchable. Think of it like this: your awakening is a frequency shift. You are moving out of one vibrational layer of consciousness and into another. And everything that cannot survive in the new frequency must either evolve or exit. Some of those things are internal old stories, limiting beliefs, trauma patterns. But some are external energies, entities, contracts, and attachments that were feeding on your lower self. And when you begin to rise, those things react. Not because they're powerful, but because they're losing power. Have you ever asked yourself why the moment you get serious about healing, everything in your life seems to fall apart? Why the moment you commit to your highest path, people start turning on you, your body starts reacting, your mind gets foggy, or you suddenly feel like you're under attack? That's not sabotage. That's purification. That's the friction of awakening. That's your soul dragging everything false to the surface so it can no longer hide. And yes, sometimes that includes entities, spiritual parasites that have been feeding off your unresolved pain without you ever knowing. But now you know. And once you know, you can no longer unknow. So what do you do with that knowledge? How do you walk forward when you're being watched by energies that want you to stop? You don't shrink. You expand. You don't beg for protection, you become the protection. You don't plead with the divine to save you, you embody the divine and walk straight into the fire. Because the fire is yours. The fire is sacred. And the fire is where the illusion burns. And here's where it gets even deeper. These demonic visitations, these so-called attacks, they are not just obstacles. They are initiations. They are the guardians at the gate of your next level. And they are meant to scare you. They are meant to shake you. They are meant to test every part of your identity that still believes in separation. Because only the part of you that forgets who you are can be manipulated. Only the part of you that still believes in fear can be controlled. And only the part of you that's still asleep can be stopped. So what if, instead of seeing these dark moments as intrusions, you saw them as invitations? Invitations to remember. Invitations to integrate. Invitations to reclaim. What if the demon isn't just an enemy, but a mirror? What if it's showing you the exact frequency you're here to transmute, not just for yourself, but for the collective? Because that's the other piece they never tell you. Your awakening is not just yours. Your healing is not just yours. When you rise, you lift timelines. When you remember, you break ancestral chains. When you embody truth, you dismantle systems created from lies. And the demonic realm knows this. That's why they come for you right before you wake up fully. Because they know if you remember who you are, the game is over. So here you are, on the edge of awakening, on the edge of remembering, on the edge of becoming the version of you that no longer plays by the rules of fear. And yes, the shadows are watching, but they are not stronger than you. They are not wiser than you. They are not more powerful than the divine intelligence that breathes your soul into form. The only question left is this: will you let the fear stop you? Or will you let it show you what you're truly made of? Because what's on the other side of this darkness is not just light. It's liberation. And no demon, no matter how loud, can stop a soul that's ready to be free. Part 2. The illusion cracks when you stop running. There comes a moment on your spiritual path when you realize the fear you've been running from was never yours. It was implanted, inherited, installed like a virus to keep your soul from fully occupying your body. Because the moment you fully arrive mind, heart, spirit, and soul united in the now, you become a frequency that cannot be enslaved. And the systems that feed on unconsciousness know this. That's why, right before you truly wake up, the fear intensifies. The illusions become more convincing. The noise gets louder, because the illusion is beginning to crack and it's fighting for its life. This is not a metaphor. It's an energetic reality. You are a multi-dimensional being, and your awakening threatens the stability of the matrix you were born into. That matrix thrives on your forgetfulness. It depends on your disconnection. It feeds on your doubt. So naturally, when your soul begins to reclaim itself, it triggers resistance both internally and externally. Energies that were dormant begin to stir. Entities attached to your lower choices begin to panic. Because the contract they had with your unconscious self is dissolving. And they know they're about to lose access. What's wild is that most people never realize the true reason their awakening feels like a breakdown. They think they've done something wrong. They think they're under attack because they're broken. But the truth is, the attack is often a sign you're breaking through. The pain is a sign the false self is dying. The confusion is a sign the old stories are unraveling. And the chaos? That's the sound of your inner prison collapsing. You're not being punished. You're being delivered. But here's the paradox. The only way out is in. You can't escape the test by avoiding it. You can't skip the fire. You must walk through it. You must feel what you've been avoiding. Face what you've been running from. And most importantly, you must see what's real. Because that's what the demon fears most, not your resistance, but your awareness. Demons don't fear light, they fear clarity. Because true clarity is the gateway to liberation. So what does it mean to stop running? It means you no longer identify with the fear. You no longer make it personal. You no longer assume that discomfort means danger. You start to recognize that what you're feeling is not always yours. That the thoughts invading your mind may not even originate from your soul. You begin to discern, and discernment is one of the highest spiritual protections available. Not because it blocks the darkness, but because it reveals the truth behind it. Have you ever sat in stillness during a panic attack and asked, "What is this trying to show me?" Have you ever looked your anxiety in the eyes and said, "I'm not afraid of you anymore"? Have you ever felt the presence of something dark and instead of praying for it to leave, you simply said, "I see you and I remember who I am"? These moments are not small. They are quantum. Because they collapse entire energetic structures that were built on your forgetfulness. You see, demons don't just exist out there. Many live inside our habits, our memories, our patterns, our unprocessed pain. And when you begin to wake up, those patterns rise. Not to destroy you, but to be seen, to be transmuted, to be freed. The demon isn't just the shadow, it's the messenger. And the message is always this: there is still something here that's ready to be healed. But most of us were taught to fear the shadow. We were never taught how to befriend it. We were taught to run, to suppress, to numb, to deny. And so when the shadow showed up in our relationships, in our thoughts, in our dreams, we believed we had failed. But we hadn't failed. We had entered the real work, the sacred work. The work that cannot be sold in books or taught in schools. The work only the soul can lead you through. And this is where sovereignty begins. Not in avoiding the dark, but in standing in your light so fully that the dark becomes illuminated. Not in attacking the demon, but in becoming so rooted in truth that the demon has nothing left to feed on. You don't have to destroy it. You simply have to evolve beyond it. You don't have to win the war. You just have to stop participating in the illusion that you were ever a prisoner. Have you ever noticed how spiritual attacks intensify right before a breakthrough? Right before you leave the toxic relationship? Right before you step into your purpose? Right before you speak your truth? That's not random. That's spiritual resistance. It's the final threshold, the last gatekeeper. And if you can recognize it for what it is, not a stop sign, but a signal, you unlock a power within you that no entity can touch. And that power is presence, not performance, not perfection, presence. The ability to sit with discomfort without abandoning yourself, to feel fear without obeying it, to hold your center even when the storm is raging. That is the true essence of awakening. Not escaping the matrix, but becoming so deeply embodied in your truth that the matrix can no longer code your consciousness. So when the demon shows up, what do? You breathe, you anchor, you speak truth, you call your power back, you name what's real. You remind yourself, this is not who I am. This is not my final form. This is not the end of my story. And in that moment, something shifts. Not just in you, but in the field around you. Because consciousness is contagious. And when you hold your truth, the entire field recalibrates. This is why the spiritual path is not about being good. It's about being whole. It's about reclaiming every part of you that you exiled, every emotion you labeled as bad, every thought you judged, every memory you tried to forget. Because integration ends the war. And when the war ends inside you, the demons lose access. Because there's nothing left to hook into. No unresolved energy. No unclaimed shadow. Just presence. And the irony. Once you stop running, the demon often disappears. Not because you cast it out, but because it no longer has a function. You've outgrown the lesson. You've claimed the light. You've remembered who you are. And in doing so, you've become something far more powerful than a fighter. You've become a mirror that reflects back to the world what is possible when a soul chooses to remember instead of run. That is your power. That is your gift. That is the reason the demons show up right before your awakening. Because they know you're about to become unforgettable. Part 3. The moment you become untouchable. There's a moment on the spiritual path where you stop asking for the storm to pass and start realizing you are the storm. Not the chaos, not the destruction, but the force of truth that no illusion can withstand. You've passed through the fire, and now you carry the flame. And that flame, when rooted in clarity and embodiment, becomes your birthright of sovereignty. This is the final phase of awakening, not the dramatic encounter with darkness, but the quiet, undeniable authority that rises in you when you no longer need to be protected because you've become the protection. When demons show up right before your awakening, it's never just about resistance. It's about reflection. They arrive to test the solidity of your remembrance. They probe for cracks not to destroy you, but to reveal where you still doubt yourself. And when you stop seeing them as enemies, a deeper truth emerges. The demon is not here to kill your light, it's here to reveal its shape. It's not here to stop your mission, it's here to ensure you're finally ready to own it. The final test is never external. It's not the haunting, the sleep paralysis, the intrusive thoughts or energetic interference. The final test is internal. It's whether you will believe the fear or believe your truth. Whether you will collapse into the illusion or rise into your embodiment. Whether you will wait for someone to save you or realize you were the one you were waiting for. This is where the game ends. This is where the soul begins to lead. Have you ever felt the presence of darkness, and instead of shrinking, you stood still and felt your spine straighten? Have you ever whispered into the void, "I am not afraid of you anymore," and felt something ancient within you activate? That's not fantasy. That's spiritual technology. That's your divine coding coming online. That's what was hidden inside the pressure all along the remembrance. And when remembrance activates, so does authority. We were never meant to stay in the light by avoiding darkness. We were meant to become masters of both, to navigate realms with discernment, not fear, to walk into density with presence, not panic, and to recognize that the true battleground was never in the sky or in some astral dimension, it was always within. Every demonic encounter was a mirror to the places we had yet to claim. And once you claim them, you don't just become free, you become dangerous to the systems that once fed on your silence. Because now, when fear whispers, you no longer listen. When doubt rises, you don't collapse. When old patterns call, you don't answer. You've ceased to be reactive. You've become responsive. Your nervous system is no longer a playground for entities. It's a temple, and your presence becomes a field one that clears rooms, shifts energy, and commands truth without speaking a word. That's the moment they can no longer find you. You've risen out of their range. And here's what most people don't realize. The demon's last attempt is always the loudest. It comes with urgency. It comes with chaos. It comes with confusion. But that intensity is not power, it's desperation. It's the final scream of a system that knows it's about to be dismantled. And if you can hold your center through that scream, if you can remember your peace in the middle of the noise, you win. Not by defeating the demon, but by outgrowing the need for its presence to define your strength. The purpose of every demonic encounter is to force you into a choice, collapse into fear, or rise into remembrance. Deny your essence or embody it. Wait for permission or become the authority. And the moment you choose embodiment, the game shifts. You're not just awake, you're anchored. You're not just healed, you're whole. And the demon no longer has anything to do here. Its contract is complete. Its role ends where your truth begins. And this is where your life changes, not because the darkness is gone, but because you no longer fear it. You walk differently. You speak differently. Your energy becomes clean, sharp, sovereign, and that sovereignty sends a signal. It tells every entity, every system, every false timeline, this one remembers. And in the spiritual realm, remembrance is the strongest force there is. Not because it's loud, but because it's unshakable. So now I ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped trying to be safe and started being sovereign? What would shift if you stopped asking for light to save you and started living as the light that dissolves all lies? What would awaken in you if you finally accepted that the demon wasn't the obstacle, it was the mirror that showed you where you needed to reclaim your power? These are not poetic questions. These are invitations to your next initiation. Because awakening is not a moment. It is a series of thresholds. And on each threshold, something will rise to challenge your readiness. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. And the closer you get to embodying your full spiritual intelligence, the more precise the test becomes. The demon is not a villain, it's a gatekeeper. It holds the keys to the doors you've forgotten how to open. And your courage is the code that unlocks them. So when they show up again, and don't panic. Don't regress. Don't forget. Remember who you are. Remember what you carry. Remember that every time you choose presence over fear, you are reprogramming your entire lineage. You are collapsing timelines of trauma. You are ending contracts that never belonged to you. And you are becoming the version of yourself that no force of deception can touch. This is why they came. This is why they screamed. This is why they tried to confuse you. Because they saw what was coming. You whole, you embodied, you unshaken, you sovereign, you as the living memory of divine truth, walking through a world still hypnotized by the lie.